All right, we are live for a quick Sunday update in reference to what's going on. And it looks like, as of now, central bankers have been discussing how they're going to address issues that will definitely impact more G-SIBs this upcoming week and beyond. And so I decided to do a little homework on my end and familiarize myself with these individuals I'm surrounded by. And the question to you guys is, how many of you guys are familiar with each and every one of these individuals that basically control the leading central banks around the world? And so we're going to see more collaborative efforts. Therefore, the only thing they can do is to swap currencies and try to prop up these failing banks. But we're going to talk about that for a brief moment. Got a couple of things I want to share with you as well as get your take. And of course, due to timing constraints, I won't be able to stream as long as I want. But just want to connect in and basically, if we got any new viewers, things are about to really ramp up at a much faster pace because we're witnessing more panic with this collaboration of the Federal Reserve and five other banks. So make it the big six. And it's not about you and I, the small guys. It's all about the globally systemic important banks. All right, so let me just jump right in. So for those who are plugged in, if you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up. And definitely, there's going to be a couple of nuggets throughout this video here. So I encourage you to share it with others so they can find out what's going on. So everyone can stay plugged into alternative media. And also, if you guys have not, I want you to consider supporting RTD channel any way possible. Here's some methods right here, links in the description for those who would like to be a blessing to the channel. Any support is helpful. Thank you. And also make sure you guys connect with me on all the alternative media platforms. Links in the description as well. Just a good way to make sure you stay plugged in with RTD in case we're no longer available here. Okay, so let me just jump right in, man. So as of right now, I decided to try to enhance this systemic risk amongst the GSIB. So here we have the big players, and this is what it's all about: propping up and supporting the globally systemic important banks. So as of right now, we have one bank, and as you guys can see at the bottom of the screen here, Credit Suisse. I crossed that out with an X because it is basically insolvent, bankrupt. It's been exposed. So what did they do? Swiss National Bank tried to provide 54 billion, but it wasn't enough just because it's holding on to approximately 10 trillion or so, or give or take, in assets. But its exposure to the derivatives market is probably in the higher trillions, and so they basically passed it to a bigger bank, which happens to be the bank right above it, which is UBS. And so Credit Suisse is going to get merged into UBS. So basically, the dominoes are going to fall upward continuously. So we'll talk more about this because the way things are playing out, I got some information about banks in Europe that also might be on the hook this upcoming week. So I might be crossing out a few more of these banks a lot sooner than I would like to. But anyway, we'll keep it going. So just to give you guys an update, I'm sure a lot of people are paying attention to it, but a lot of losses are piling up on people who thought they were holding on to something that was of value. So here we got UBS agrees to buy Credit Suisse for more than 2 billion. And it's a very interesting article here. And of course, between now and tomorrow, when all the signatures are signed, something could go wrong. So there's no guarantees. But in the meantime, this is what they're trying to pull off. So we'll have to keep our eyes on this. But just to give an idea, here, it says USB will now pay more than 50 cents a share in its own stock, but from a bid of about a quarter earlier today, worth about $1 billion, that was rejected by the Credit Suisse board. So ultimately, this deal ended up going in above the shareholders' head. They even bothered to vote or get approval or nothing like that. This was an emergency um, deal here, so not many people have any say so on what's happening here. And it says here the Swiss National Bank has agreed to offer 100 billion liquidity line to the UBS as part of the deal. So, in order to help UBS handle some of the debt load that they're about to take on, the Swiss National Bank has come in and said, we'll also provide you cushion if you need some support. So right now we're witnessing, not only has the Federal Reserve last week provided a backstop for the regional banks as well as the ultra uber wealthy depositors. Now we got the Swiss National Bank getting involved as well with one bank, and of course they got a couple, systemic important banks in the form of UBS, which is probably going to be up next eventually, and so Swiss banks are getting involved. And so here we have what's really going on for shareholders or bondholders, rather. It says Credit Suisse's 17 billion of risky bonds now worthless after takeover by UBS. It says those bonds were created for moments like this. So imagine being a holder of some of these risky bonds, and all of a sudden they're worthless. meaning you're not getting anywhere where you're not getting anything near what you put in, or you're getting fractions or pennies on that initial loan there. So this is just it is very complicated in detail, and so I'm still trying to familiarize myself with all these terminologies here. But I know people put up money to support these companies, and now they're not getting it back. So a loss is a loss, unless Swiss national banks come in and make people whole, which basically is a bailout. All right, so I'm rushing, but just want to get as much of this stuff up and out of the way. So here we have more insight as to the bonds I'm just referring to. So here we have the price of the Credit Suisse cocoa bonds, and so this was normal bond activity, trading close to 90% on par value. But now all of a sudden, when things go awry, boom, it's a drop off. So people are taking haircuts, and it's good to say that it's going to spread further than just Credit Suisse. So and then here, now the UBS has taken on the liabilities of a failing bank in a sense. Their credit default swaps have also trended higher. Basically, mean people want to take out an insurance on their exposure to UBS now, just in case something happens. They want to make sure they're covered. So yeah, it's like just one thing after the next. And then here we have another interesting article here, which I think is going to be very important. It says two major banks in Europe worry about contagion, look to regulators for reassurance. And so we have two banks in Europe. And of course, this is from an unknown source. And so it says at least two major banks are examining scenarios of contagion possibly spreading in the region's banking sector and look for the Federal Reserve and the ECB to step in. So possibly two fairly large banks. And so just by circumstance, just go back and just look. So here on this chart, we have the globally systemic important banks. So if those two banks happen to be G-SIBs, then of course they'll fall into this region over here. So we got BNP Paribas, which is over here, which had some issues last week as well, kind of flew under the radar. And then we have Santander Bank, we have Commerce Bank, and of course, don't forget Deutsche Bank, which is still interconnected. So my suspicion would be Deutsche Bank is going to start popping up in the news pretty soon. And of course, Deutsche Bank here, according to this visual aid here, is the head honcho of all the globally systemic important banks because it's extremely important because of the derivatives. They are the largest carrier of derivatives to the tunes of I don't know how much, but a lot more than the US G-SIBs, which are over here to the right. So we'll find out what those two banks are dealing with in the next week or so, because it's definitely not going to stop. No matter how much collaborative efforts the banks work on, it's not going to stop because all they're going to have to do is print, more print. And then, real quickly, on here on the home front, it looks like Warren Buffett is in contact with the Biden team on banking crisis. And so, one thing I've always mentioned is that how what's his name, Warren Buffett. I think I was about a year or two ago when things started to look a little shaky. It was reported that he was sitting on 100+ billion in cash, ready for a fire sale. And so my suspicion is that Warren Buffett himself is probably getting a little jittery at the fact that he want to make sure his 100+ billion, or how much he has for his Berkshire Hathaway and all his other businesses, that their cash is safe. And so he has a direct access to call up Joe and say, "Hey, I'm coming to talk to you. We got to figure this out." And it's not because of you and I. It's more so because he want to make sure he's good and his legacy is good with the billions he's sitting on. So once again, when you got these type of players getting together, we know it's not going to equal nothing good. And so that to me, it just shows more panic that's out there in the markets and how even the big heads are getting a little concerned and want confidence. They want reassurance that they're going to be covered no matter what. And so we'll find out what comes from this. But yeah, we know it's serious when Warren Buffett and Joe Biden are getting together and having some discussions. But here's the primary article of the day. And I think this is just a door opener outside of the individual central banks in their countries trying to maintain order as well as confidence for those for the where it still lies. We have Fed and 5 central banks announce move to boost dollar funding. So it didn't help that there was already a dollar shortage, i.e., the liquidity crisis, which has led to a lot of potential bankruptcies as well as issues in emerging markets. With there's just not being enough dollars around to fund the current debts taken out as interest rates rise. And so it looks like we have the banks, and as I would mention to start off, for those governors around me, offhand, of course, we know Jerome Powell, Then above me here we have the let me see here. I wrote down the names to try to better understand them, but we got Mr. Tim Jordan. Where we at? Right here. So over where we at? On the other side of me. Wait a minute, I'll go this way. Yeah. So no, on this side. I'm going the same way. So on this side here, anyway, Christian Lagarde, Tim Jordan, and then we have Tim. Let me see, I wrote the names now so I can remember because I'm going to have to familiarize myself with these guys. We got Tim McLean from the Bank of Canada, which is the guy right here over this side, over here. Then we got it's Andrew Bailey right here. The Tim guy is right here. Forgive me. Then we have, of course, Christine Lagarde. We know that. Thomas Jordan is the Swiss bank. And then we have Kuzo Ueda, if I'm not saying that incorrectly up here. So these are the banks that have been discussing over the weekend how they're going to address the further contagion within the G-SIBs. And so I'm sure we're going to hear more about these individuals here. But ultimately, to sum this up, they're working together. They're going to be swapping IOUs, monopoly money amongst each other just to shore up everything in dollar terms because all these derivatives that they're trying to prop up within the G-SIBs happen to be denominated in dollars. So, as I mentioned before, with the total amount of dollars needed, and that's why I used to say that, how much currency could they try to print? And I'm thinking like as much currency as they would need to prop up the G-SIBs. And of course, this little graph here doesn't do any justice, but it's outdated. But if I can get this up here, as you guys can see here, this is an old figure, but we're well beyond the 1 quadrillion amount. And so if they really wanted to try to prop up, sustain, and keep a calm amongst the G-SIBs to cover up their gambling habits, they would need close to $1 to $2 trillion at a minimum. And $1 to $2 trillion, actually being brought into existence for the sheer sake of propping up these banks would definitely leak out into the main economy and cause hella problems. And of course, ultimately, everything that's taking place now is just more currency erosion. And that's why it's never been more important to really focus on preservation of capital. That's what it's about, man. Of course, if you're, a sophisticated, investor and trader, I'm sure you're loving this time right now because of the opportunities that may present themselves. But for your average Joe, best thing is to stay out of harm's way, get out of the line of fire, because the currency is the weapon of choice. And of course, as you guys can see here, gold and silver is at the bottom of this pyramid. That's ultimately the safe haven that the world is going to run to. And of course, we're witnessing cryptos get a little boom. Bitcoin is starting to do its thing. But once again, don't be fooled. At the end of the day, when the lights go out and the power goes out, what you're gonna want something tangible, something you can either put in your mouth at the time, or something you can hold in your hand. Any blips on the screen, I wouldn't bet on them 100%. So, but anyway, just wanted to come before you guys real quick, give you an update as to what's happening, and just let you know that we have the central bankers officially panicking, in my sense, and the clock is ticking. The G-SIBs are they're on the clock right now. We got Credit Suisse already being absorbed into UBS. Now, who's going to absorb UBS? And more than likely, Swiss is going to have to nationalize their entire G-SIB business. And then the ECB and the Fed are going to collaborate to help prop up the two potential banks in Europe that's going to have some problems. Keep an eye out on Deutsche Bank and BNB Paribas probably making the news in the next week or so. So anyway, just wanted to connect for a quick moment. Apologize for the briefness of this live stream here, but I wanted to definitely get something done in reference to just keeping you guys plugged into what's going on. And as of right now, as I mentioned, we got one crossed off. We have one globally systemic important bank crossed off. And so now we just wait and see which one will be next. So which one would it be? Is Credit Suisse as of now? Would it be UBS next? We'll find out. But anyway, hope everyone is well. Of course, if I can, time-wise, I'll try to get back in with you guys. But if you haven't, as I always say, make sure you connect with RTD. If you found any value here, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. And if you guys would like to be a support to the channel also, all the opportunities to be a blessing is in the description as well. And I will see you guys later. Peace.